Ahuva, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, Dr. Nate, for having me on the show. I am so excited.
Well, I'm excited too because we get to geek out about something that's very near and dear to our world. Plus, it's near and dear and important for business owners, and they miss it because it's almost like they have blinders on when it comes to the numbers. And you are an expert in this area as a fractional CFO, and of course, I've spent 30 years in this space. So we're gonna have some fun. So if you're listening and you're like, "Oh my goodness, I'm going to turn off because I don't want to talk about numbers and I have a business."
Don't turn off. Don't turn off. Awareness is number one.
You bet.
Awareness is number one in helping your company, in helping your business, in being a leader. Awareness comes before action.
That's right. And there's a lot of lack of awareness, right? Blindness in a lot of work. In a lot. You do you experience it? I experience it.
Oh, I see it all the time. If you think if you don't talk about it, you don't look at it, you'll be fine. But it doesn't work like that in the real world. In order to, in order to grow and succeed, you need to have awareness. And in order to fix any issue, any bottlenecks, any leaking money, you need awareness.
You bet. Yeah, and we don't talk about money a lot on the show, and it's really a treat when we get to because it is the blood flow. I call it money is the blood flow through your business, and it is the resource provider. And so, as you know, with many business owners, the only numbers they know is what's in the bank account. Hey, I wake up in the morning, I see what my balance is, and so if I got money in the account, I'll do this. If I don't, I got to go work harder. That's no way to run a business.
No, no way to run a business. That is really, really elementary. That is really, then your stomach will turn over when the morning that you don't have money in the business. It's so important to know what's going on in the business, know about cash flow, to know what's coming in and what's going out. And once you know about cash flow, you could do so much more. You could look at processes. How long is it taking my clients to pay your clients to pay their bill, their invoices? How long do I have to pay my vendors? Do I need to negotiate the vendor terms? Not to pay everyone on the spot, but to give yourself 30 days, to give yourself breathing room. You need to give your clients breathing room, 30 days, but not 60 days, not 90 days, not 120 days. It is so important. A law firm, I have clients at a law firm. For them, it's so important to make sure that the clients have money in the trust account, because when they win the case, when the case is over, they disappear. You won't be able to get the money. Construction businesses, when they get the product, then you have to go running after. Don't give the final product before they pay up. There has to be processes. Processes is so important. Processes about when you give what to your clients, how long do they have to pay? Do they need to give a deposit? When do they have to give the second installment? When they have to give the third? When they have to give the final installment? What's process? You're letting them pay up slowly, on what terms? Processes is so important in every part of the business. And when I go into a business, one of the things I look at is process. Processes for cash flow, processes for checks and balances, processes for every part. It helps your business run smoother, run better, your cash flow. Everything you do in your business leads to the bottom line. It is so important. I cannot talk about it enough.
Oh yeah, I love it. I love that foundation that you just laid for this conversation as so important. Knowing your numbers is one of the most important aspects, if not the most important aspect of your business. And for me, all my life, I've always thought about the numbers first. Numbers first. So whatever it is I'm going to do, I'm like, well, let's run the numbers first before I even think about starting a business or doing any kind of investment. And then with the numbers flesh out, then it's like, okay, let's take the next step. Is there a market for it? Things like that, right? Can we get the employees and the help and all the resources necessary to run this business? But the numbers are the most important piece. And you talked about something that's really important, but I know that we got a lot to talk about, but at some point I do want to talk about the aspect of cash flow. And I love how you framed it and setting the right processes for what the expectation is for how I'm going to get paid as a business. We owe that to our business. We owe that to our employees. We owe that even to our clients, our customers, because if we don't have the funds and resources to finish one job because we're still waiting on money for another one, well, that's going to end up in a very bad experience, a very poor experience for all of our stakeholders.
100%. In order to have cash flow, this is such a loaded topic. But number one, you have to know, once you know what your business is, you know what services is doing well, what services are not doing well, what season, what's your slow season, what's your busy season. Put money aside in your busy season. Don't just like Dr. Nate said, oh, there's money in the account. I'm going to go do my website over, invest in research development, or make a big office party.
Or go buy a big fancy car that you can't afford because you're just spending the company's money.
Yeah. You have to put aside money for taxes. Put aside money for your slow month. Put aside a reserve for if you lose a big client or the client doesn't pay in time, even when you have the process. Cash flow is know when money's coming out, when money's coming in, when money's coming out, and really plan accordingly. So once you have awareness, you can work on cash flow. And cash flow could be an issue. Is one of my favorite topics is you're not making enough profit. But, we could talk about profit margins and all that, but cash flow is like huge. And your whole business, you have to have a mindset. Are your service providers, are your employees, are they billing right? Are they tracking their hours right? If you don't track your hours right and they don't bill on time, no clients just want to get a bill 5 months later. They're not going to pay it. That's going to hit your cash flow. If you don't keep up your credential of what, then you'll hit a snag if you can't bill.
Yep. It's so important. I'm glad you brought that point up. Billing, 4, 5, 6 months out, it's just too late, and people have forgotten about it. They're not going to pay. I love to have clients. As far as if different businesses have different ways to do this. However, as much as you can automate, if you can put people on ACH and have auto debit for whatnot for services, recurring services, don't go chasing money. Because chasing money is just more time and investment in accounts receivables, and then you've got the likelihood of getting your money is not always that great as the aging happens for longer receivables, and also, as you said, deposits. Hey, you know what? Tell a client I had some work done at the house, and I had the contractor say, well, I need 50% down. And then my second installment, I need another 20%, another 20%. And then when we final, the last 5%, the last 10%. And guess what I did? I paid it.
Follow through.
I followed
through. And that's what I tell my contractors and my construction related business. If you put the processes and they know and you do good work, they'll follow through. And about the deposits, the automated, that's great. Also, in 2024, we should not be waiting for checks in the mail. ACH, Zelle, credit card, 100%. No more, oh, I mailed the check. And then you have to wait, and then you have to risk a bouncing. ACH, Zelle, credit card, it's worth it to pay the 3% to know the head. And if it's automated, then you could set up to charge your credit monthly.
Set it and forget it.
So it's so important. All these little practices, you think, oh, it's nothing. But business owners, it makes a huge difference. It makes a huge difference in your cash flow. It makes a huge difference on your health, how you could sleep at night, how you wake up, are you dreading looking at the bank account in the morning. And if you have money, don't go blow it because you don't know. You have to put aside for what's, let's say, quarterly estimated tax return, slow month, rent, mortgage, insurance, utilities, payroll.
All of that.
It's so important.
And that's where the professional relationship comes in, because you may not know how to do all this, and it's okay. It's okay. I'm
And that's
this isn't a plug for accountants, but listen, you're not an accountant. 99% of business owners are not accountants, and that's great.
right. So you do what you're best at and you delegate the rest. So I come in and we run cash flow forecast, profit and loss, balance sheet to help the owner, because no business owner could be great at everything. You can't be great at everything. Do what you're best and delegate the rest. Just like you said, you had construction in your house. When I did work in my house, I didn't go sit there thinking about the colors, about what to do. I hired a professional. She came. We worked together. She showed me what colors, and I loved it. It was great. I hired a professional to do what I'm not good at, and I use my time to what I'm good at. And it's so to business owners, you can't do everything. Delegate what you're great at and what you need, and do what you're great at and delegate the rest. It's so crucial.
Yeah, I live by that philosophy. And then something else you said was really important as well. And when you're talking to a business owner and they're already making decisions, financial decisions, without a professional or someone who is understanding all of those different parts, you're really fighting an uphill battle, because you're going to make the kind of mistakes that could actually put you out of business. And so
100%.
when you're talking about all of those different aspects, so many business owners get into the trouble to where they see all the money and then they're not thinking about, as you said, the seasonality or the taxes. In the tax world, you get to the end of the year, you file your tax return, and you have $100,000 in net profit and no money to pay taxes because you've used it. Oh gosh, I didn't know I was going to have a tax bill. Now I'm in debt to the government, which you don't want to be in debt to the government, and all the other things, impulse control. You may go out and get a new building, and you just didn't know that. Oh my goodness, now I've got no cash flow, and now I've got all these expenses that go with the building. You need
exactly. You don't only buy the building, you have to upkeep it. You don't only buy the software, you have to upkeep it. You have to have like a full picture. And like you said, a lot of business owners, either they're not good running the financial, or they can't be everywhere.
Right.
You can't be everywhere. And just looking at your bank account in the morning is not going to do it. It's not going to do it. And if you think that it's not worth it to invest in financial health, it's much more costly not to. And if you talked about taxes, if you wait for the end of the year and when you sit down with your tax accountant, how much money you made and how much you expended, you lost a whole year of working up with your finances. If you didn't do well, if you did well and you have a tax bill, great. Now you have to find the money to pay the tax bill if you didn't put money aside. But if you didn't do well, you lost an entire year of you could have been corrected.
Yeah. And that's where the relationships come in handy. As you know, accountants are there to help keep you accountable, hold you accountable. That's what we do. And you might be listening and say, oh my goodness, that's exactly why I don't want that, because then you're going to tell me all the things I can't spend my money on, right? And that's okay too, because again, back to what Ahuva was saying earlier, if no one tells you these things, guess what happens? You end up in trouble. You end up in big trouble.
I love their play on words. And it's great because accountants, we hold people accountable not just for taxes. We hold them accountable in their business, because every business owner is doing it, yes, out of passion, but also to make money. Holding accountable is holding accountable to the owner, to the management, to improve things, to fix bottlenecks. Holding accountable to the employees, to make sure they're doing the right work, they're tracking the hours. Attorney, they're tracking how many hours they worked on a client. Construction businesses, tracking how long a job took, so we could see if we made money. We could attorneys, one of my specialties, we could see if to bill it at timely. Accountability. It's so much. It's so important. It's important for the health of the company, important for everyone. And And there's nothing like accountability. Yes, we celebrate the wins. We strategize what to correct the things that didn't work, but it's accountability. It's so important. And action. Awareness, action.
Absolutely. It reminds me of Steve Jobs when he first came back to Apple back in 1997 as interim CEO, ICEO, and the company was about 90 days from insolvency. And so Steve Jobs didn't just take the reins and say, I'm going to fix all this. The first thing he did, he went to the CFO and said, hey, look, I need us to work as a team so that we can turn this company around. Let's find all the money we're wasting and stop wasting it. Let's go find ways where we can gather more cash flow. Let's go, so many aspects. And then the blind spots. Where are my blind spots? Where's Apple been going wrong financially? Asking that of the professional so that he could help. And he helped turn Apple around. Yeah. It wasn't just Steve Jobs all by himself,
Right. It was a group effort. And it's so important when you hire a professional, thank you for bringing it out, to work with the professional, not just to disappear for 6 months, to have communication, to work together. For example, if there's an issue in operation, the CFO can't fix it themselves. But we could point out and work together what processes, what has to be changed, when I go in a company, I look at the 4 P's. People, your employees, your clients, products. Are they happy? What's right? What's going right? What's going wrong? Processes and profit margin. We can't forget about profit margin. You're leaving money on the table. It's not going to help you. It's not going to be good. If you have sales guys, business owners, and you don't have good profit margin, you're just spinning your wheels. You need sales, but every sale needs to have profit margin. I was speaking to a client the other day, and he had tons of clients and tons of sales, but they don't pay their bills, and half of them are not good quality. It's not just quantity of business owners, it's quality. It's so important to have quality workers, employees, have quality clients, have quality. Know where you're making money. Know what services. If it's location, know what location you're making money. Know what location you're not. So you can know where to expand, what to stop, what to correct, what to build on, what's a lead magnet. Some things at a client they're not making much money on, but it leads them into for their clients to use them more. You have to look at the whole picture, and the CEO or the owner, whatever their title is, business owner, to work together with the finance department to really drive up the business to a greater level.
Well said. Well said. In fact, that reminds me of, I used to teach a business planning class at one of the universities, and it was essentially writing a business plan. And when we got to the financial part where we did the spreadsheet on, of course, the balance sheet, the profit and loss statement of cash flows, and many of the students said, oh my goodness, Professor Nate, this business is going to go bankrupt. I can't make any money at it, because they realized that they didn't have enough profit margin. They didn't have all of those things thought of. And then they started asking, can we do the financial part first? Maybe in future classes to see whether this business is even viable, or maybe there has to be changes as you suggested. It's been said the riches are in the niches, right? Where is my cash cow? Where's my number one niche that's most profitable for me? And do I need to refocus my efforts on that? Because I may be focusing my efforts on a very low profit or no profit, or actually a loss leader for my company that's actually having me to lose money. Because for example, for us, for years, when we did bookkeeping, and we were just never charging enough, Ahuva, and I was losing money on the bookkeeping. And then,
ouch.
Yeah, I know, right, as an accounting firm, right?
Right. So that's why I say to my clients on podcasts and to whoever I speak to, it's so important to know your profit margin, to know your gross profit margin, which is sales minus direct costs. Know your net profit margins. No. Open your eyes. Get the expertise. Hire people if you don't know how to do it yourself, to really, because it's like the joke. A guy said, his accountant said, you're losing money at every sale. You're losing on every item you sell, you're losing 20 cents. He said, don't worry, I'll make it up by quantity. If you're losing money, business owners, you're not making it up in quantity. You're losing even more.
Yeah, that's a good
And
one.
if you're not making much money, if you're breaking even, why are you doing it? Is it a lead magnet? Fine.
Right.
If it's not a lead magnet, either raise the price. I know, depending on the industry, it's not so simple. So what? Is employees have to be more efficient? Talk about accountability. I had a client that their employees were taking too long. We installed, it was field workers, and they would go out, cameras on the vehicles. And they were told, they were very straight. They would, all of a sudden, with other processes, it took them shorter to get the job done. And then they also had some surprises where people took breaks and go to alcoholic liquor shop where a company vehicle, not so good for the company, but accountability. Know your profit margin. Know what went right. Know what went wrong. Know what's going on.
That's a really good point you make. And there's you cannot underestimate the value of agreements and monitoring those. It's been said, trust but verify. And so that's the verification process. Are we working most efficiently? And we're going to hold one another accountable. And whether it means that you're doing spot checking or whether or not you have a camera to make sure that the employees are going to the right locations and being efficient. Those are ways, not necessarily that we are punishing people, but then we're calling them to the highest level by having each other hold one another accountable through those processes.
Right. And when they're accountable and they do better, they could get raises. When the company does better, the employees do better, the clients do better, everyone does better. And it's not just making systems to having the cameras. And when I go into my clients, we look at the accountability things. There's someone looking at it. It's not just having the processes, but looking. How long are they taking to do the project? If it's, let's say, a construction, if it's too long, then why? Was it because of the weather? Was it because the job site? What went wrong? My lawyer, why, like with the billing, what happened? If you didn't have enough hours or something is flat fee, value-based, and it took too long, like what happened? Manufacturing, Amazon, any business is like, you can't just have processes to look at, you have to have. So I hold people accountable. I hold the owner accountable. I hold the employees accountable, and we look at it. So that, when the cat leaves, the mice run, they know that someone is on top. Mm-hmm. Someone is looking. What they do matters. We could celebrate the wins and see what went wrong, how to improve.
Yeah, we've talked about operational waste on the program before, and this is also a great refresher to that because all of it flows to the bottom line.
Everything hits the money one way or the other. Everything hits the bottom line. Everything hits the dollar. If you even think indirectly, if you don't have good processes and your clients are unhappy, they're not going to use you again. It's going to hit the bottom line. Whatever happens hits the bottom line. That's besides that we of course look at profit and losses and balance sheet and forecast, cash flow forecast and business, financial forecast. But we don't just look at the reports. Like we have to get down to what is driving those numbers.
Yeah.
What has to change?
Agreed. A couple of things I want to kind of dive a little deeper on that you brought up. One of them is the pricing. We've seen this many times, more than not, is people undervalue their offering, and perhaps our folks on different areas. But I just want to touch on that. When I first started many years ago for a 1040 easy return, a basic return, back when there was a such thing called a 1040 easy, I charged $10.
Oh my gosh.
long time ago, and it included a binder, and this is back in the 90s, of course, many years ago. It was my bleed magnet, as you, of course, more complicated tax returns were more expensive. But at the same time, I knew I wasn't making any money. In fact, I was losing money on that
Big
particular type
time.
of return, but I was getting the basic return filers. Eventually, they became more complicated and so on and so forth. And to this day, we still have many of those clients 30 years later. However, there came a point where I had to make a decision to increase my prices to market rate because my prices were well below market rate and they were unsustainable at that time.
I could
And
see that it
that
would be
happened.
unsustainable.
Yeah, today, yeah, charging $10 for a
Yeah,
tech.
yeah. But even like in the 90s, even lead magnets that bring you in more business, it has to be balanced. You can't be losing. And if it's losing, you have to have a plan. You have to have a plan to know what's going on. Pricing. How many clients of mine, when I come in, and then one client, he was using deposit to fund the operation, which is a big no-no. And he said he has the pricing right. I said, let's see. And I delved into the company and I analyzed the books and spoke to the staff. You guys, you have to have a system in place how you come up with pricing, not just out of the hat. Because if you don't have a system in place, you don't know what your costs are, what everything goes in, and what not only your costs, but then what profit margin you need, gross and net profit margin. Then you'll be like Dr. Nate, losing money. Because you really have to know what's your direct cost, what's the formula. I give like a pricing tool to my clients, but I don't just give the pricing tool. We look at it all the time at different projects or different services to make sure that we're making money. And if we didn't, what went wrong? What went right? And what went wrong? How do we have to change it? And it's about, you have to have the direct cost, your gross profit margin, and also look at your net profit margin. How much money you want to take home to your family? How much is your rent? How much is your utility? How much is your overhead? How much is your marketing? All your overhead expenses. What are they necessary? Could it be done more efficiently, more effectively? Could you lower it? If you have software and system, are your employees using it? Otherwise, use it or get rid of it. If it's not using, it could be great software, but you're losing money. You're not getting return on investment, ROI. You're not getting return on investment if you're not using it. If it's not good, you have to know your pricing. You don't just want to bring in sales. You have to have a good profit margin. Because if you don't have good profit margin, you'll keep your staff busy. You'll have to hire more staff, more overhead, more employee salary, more employee taxes and benefit, more headache for you. For what? You want to grow rich, grow more successful, not grow poor.
Right. Yes, indeed. And it's a snare that many of us face, especially early on, because we want to get as many clients as possible. Any client is a good client if we could just get the sale. Of course, as time progresses, the hope is that with the right type of structure, as you had mentioned, and the right type of pricing model, that you can actually have enough profit to pay for all of the expenses that you just mentioned. And plus, it's effective leadership too, because as business owners, it's our responsibility to be good stewards and to properly assess. The beginning piece is what I'm going to charge for the service or product, and that has many factors as you just described. And in that process, to put yourself in a position to where, okay, now I have enough money to cover all the expenses of this business and enough money for this to make sense for me. You don't have to necessarily have a business that's going to make it $50 million. Maybe it will, but it has to at least pay enough of expenses for it to make sense for you.
And I will add, when you have your business and you have your forecast, you also want to build up your own reserve, your own credit. Not to have to go to credit cards if you have a slow month or a bad month, because credit card interest is really bad. Well, you don't want to have to take a line of credit. One of the goals is to build your own credit. for slow months, for if one of my clients had a hurricane, and his office was closed a week or two. You can't just then, you still need to pay your payroll. Yes, you should have insurance for lost income, but you have to have reserve. You want to pay your overhead. You want to be able to take home money to your family. And you also need to build your own reserve for a slow month, for a bad month, for emergency. It's so important because I don't believe in paying credit card interest. And if it could be avoided, if you're going to take out a line of credit, you have to know, what are you taking out a line of credit for? How are you paying it up? Is it worth it?
Absolutely.
Don't just build a business on credit.
Absolutely. Yeah. The credit card interest fees are exorbitant. You're talking 20 plus, sometimes up to 30%, close to it. And that is just an exorbitant rate to pay.
And I'm sure you see it how fast businesses and people personally could build up credit card, and it could be a vicious cycle and hard to get out of. So you have to make enough money. It's sales, profit margin, not leaking out money in order to really do well and think of the future. Discipline is the choice. I heard a good quote, and I love good quotes. It's between choosing what you want now to what you want most. When you want to know if to buy something, what do I want now or what I want most? Like you said, do I want a fancy car or I want financial security? I want a healthy company. Do I want to have a big, huge barbecue, or I want to milk my business for years to come?
That's brilliant. It's so good. And it's, this may seem like it's common sense, because it is. It's just the problem is that most people don't practice common sense when it comes to their finances.
I heard common sense is not so common.
That's right. And I found, and I know you found it too, that business owners who are intentional and have financial a sense of not overextending themselves financially, of taking the time to consider their margins, profit margins, that have impulse control, as you had mentioned earlier. They're people. They just do better. I mean,
they do much better.
Do better. And they have much more cohesive, peaceful environments without all of the stress and the pressure of having to rob Peter to pay Paul and living day to day and trying to find money and always asking banks or maxing out credit cards and just in this revolving door of stress.
100%. And that, and a calm and a better atmosphere from the top up will affect the employees, will affect how they treat the employees, a team approach, and then it gets, if your employees aren't happy, it'll got to leak out to your clients. So, and it's so important to have a good morale. Yes, it's a balance. You can't just do everything for your employees and not have accountability. That doesn't work either, but it's a balance. You have to have good morale, a team approach. And if the owner is stressed, then the employees are going to be stressed, and then it's gonna affect your business, your services, your product, and then it'll affect your bottom line.
Yeah. And knowing those things, whether you know them or you have, again, the professionals. I remember reading an article about Warren Buffett, and he invests in many companies, and he has people who are managing and running those companies. And his philosophy is his manager, whoever's running those companies, needs to be able to tell him just how much every ply of toilet paper cost the company. To that point, of course, it's a little anecdotal, but the point is that they're aware, they understand these costs so that they can be savvy. And again, making those decisions, whether it be, hey, let's negotiate a better rate on our building. If we're renting a building, is there any way we can get $1 off for paying on time? Or whether it's going and getting furniture that is a little less expensive than the very, very finest, whatever it is. And I've found over the years, Ahuva, that those, they don't affect the bottom line in terms of hurting the company by negotiating a better rate, or maybe the furniture isn't the highest quality. But in the long run, we end up with more cash to run our business.
Yes. It totally affects the bottom line. It affects also the cash flow. I tell newer business, first get money in. First make money. Don't spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on your website. You could always redo your website, but you have to get money in the door. And yes, and the furniture, you don't need the fanciest furniture. It's not going to bring you more business. If you have good service, you don't have to, if your clients coming in, you don't need to have like a dump. It has to be presentable, but it's balanced. Everything, it's balanced.
It really is.
Totally balanced.
In fact, I'll give you a quick example. Years ago, when we were going to the shopping malls during tax season, and we'd open up a kiosk. We'd have a enclosed kiosk where we had these walls, modular walls. And we would bring in folding tables, and we'd have a nice black cloth on the folding table. And it was presentable. It was nice. It was attractive. The total cost was, what, $40 for the table, $15 for the cloth. And you reason, of course, later, once we developed and grew and had offices year round, we got nicer stuff. We could afford it. But the point was, as you said, we didn't have to go all out.
Right.
And it was okay.
The money,
clients weren't complaining. They wanted great service, and it was presentable enough, and it worked for everyone.
And another point is, I'll say, is you'll see what you think, what's really necessary. When I opened my business, I got a whole fancy phone system. And with the messages, I spent so much time on it, and it was a waste. So much time about press 1 for this, press 2 for this, press 3. It was the cost of setting it up, the monthly cost. And then I saw for my business, clients, one, I was giving personal care. I was giving on my cell phone. They want personal care. I didn't need a whole fancy phone system. You think you need something, but you might not need it. First start, see what you need. If you need to learn a later, nicer website, fine. If you need a whole phone system, fine. If you need advertising, what kind of advertising? What you need. But if just go doing and speaking, yes, you could speak to people and get educated, but really wait to see what you need. Don't just spend and spend. Later on, I had a client. He had spending a ton of research development on software. But then when I needed a simple report about, he couldn't get it. He couldn't give it to me. So what are your software? What is all your technology? You love it? Yeah. But is it really giving you what we needed? No. Then why we're spending on it?
I love how you brought up the idea of ROI. What's my return on investment? Assess it regularly on all of the different services and the functions and the equipment that you have. And then make decisions, whether it be quarterly, semi-annually, or some of them are annually, and get rid of things that aren't going, especially like you said, software programs, or make some changes. And that's perfectly acceptable. And it's the best way to clean house on a regular basis.
Right. And when you assessing return on investment on different software, different services, it could change over time. Maybe in the beginning of the business, you needed more Google ads, for example, and more to bring in sales. But then once you have the sales, or once you, for example, just giving an example, then you could cut down on it. It's like you can't just do it once. You have accountability. Accountability. I'm going to use that one all the time now. It has to be like quarterly, semi-annually, annually, to look at different services. Is this still going good for us? Is it not? Do we need to invest more? Do we need to cut down? It's not once and forgot.
Absolutely not. It's a continual process. It's a continual investment. We've got to create the margin in our own day, in our own week, in our own month to make those assessments. And we also have to have the right partners on our team who can help us with the blind spots. And I'm so thankful that you're in this space and that you're doing great work for people to help them in this essential area of business.
Thank you. This is my passion in life, is to help businesses grow and succeed and not just spin their wheels. This is my passion. but I talk about all day and what I do.
Well, it's clear that you're passionate about it and extremely knowledgeable, extremely competent in the area. I know we just gave our listener massive amounts of content, maybe have to listen to it a few more times to really digest it, but this gives a really good overview of some of the key areas that you and I have found in our time in this space to make sure that that we're being aware of and addressing to be successful, to be fruitful, to have a healthy business, and to have an impact on the lives that we are fortunate enough to be a part of.
Right. Well said.
Thanks for being here, Ahuva.
Thanks for having me. This was great.